Hi there, it's Lerald, and today I'm going to be talking about this week's batch of PTR changes. Now, at this point 7 hours ago, the 10.2 PTR was updated with some pretty substantial changes to Demon Hunter that I'll come back to, but as you can see, it's a pretty long list of things, and these are great changes. There were also some changes for other tanks, though. For Bear Druids, the two-piece was slightly redesigned. Rage you spend during Rage of the Sleeper makes Dream Thorns, and they wreath you in protection and absorbing a percentage of damage to you, blah, blah, blah. It's still the same crappy set that everybody, or at least all of the raiding Bear Druids, absolutely hate. It's still basically like a 1% damage increase with both the 2 and 4-piece bonus in raid. Pretty terrible. I think a lot of the Mythic Plus Bear Druids actually kind of like it because it just gives you a lot of uptime on an okay defensive cooldown, but the damage contribution is terrible, and I think just in general, this tier set bonus, it seems like Blizzard's really digging their heels in here and committing to the idea that Bear Druid will suck again. So let's move on to Monk. The 4-piece bonus for Monk has been capped at 100% of maximum health. This was not a normal problem. In 5-target cleave, the average shield would be around 350,000 health. They're just sort of looking for outlier situations where you could, like, I don't know, hit 100 billion guys and get like a 60 million damage staggers. It doesn't matter. This is a nothing change, and it's fine. Similarly, this change to Prot Pally is basically just a weird bug fix where some talents and mastery were, or I guess consecration and your mastery were kind of overlapping in a weird way where you could walk out of consecration and still have your mastery functioning. It whatever. Again, just a bug fix. Let's see. No other tank changes. That's fine. No changes to Blood DK at all. And then Prot Warrior. It's kind of funny how this keeps working out. I just wrote an article. I mean, technically I wrote it a week ago, but it was just published earlier today. And then here we are. The Prot Warrior 4-piece bonus consuming Thunderous Roar now deals 100% of its remaining damage. Do I think I'm responsible for this talent change or this change? Absolutely not. This is probably pipelined in a week ago when I was writing the article rather than, once it was out. And, I think it's probably just a signifier that I had the right idea. And this is the fix that they've gone with. And this works. This fixes the biggest problem that people still had with the Prot Warrior tier set bonus. And it's not overpowered or anything. It's just a good change. And I think everybody's probably going to be pretty happy with it. But it is funny how this keeps working out because I think the last time that there was a major change to the Prot Warrior tier set, I had said the fact that it's single target is maybe a concern for Mythic Plus, and the fact that the cooldown reduction on Thunderous Roar is 1 second kind of sucks, and then like 24 hours later, it was changed to be a personal buff, and Thunderous Roar cooldown reduction from the tier set was 3 seconds. So tripled from what it was. It's just kind of nice to keep feeling like they're in my head. maybe I'm in their head. Either way, it's nice to want something to happen and then exactly the thing that you asked for happens and like immediately. Like you can go to bed and wake up and the thing you wanted to happen will have happened. Okay, so we'll jump into the game in a second here, but I just want to read through all the Demon Hunter talent changes first. New talent, Champion of the Glaive. Throw Glaive has 2 charges and 10-yard increased range. This is great in a way that'll make more sense once we look at the talent tree. Like, obviously, it doesn't sound particularly great. Also, many talents have changed locations and or available connections. I'll do the, brief overview version of this by saying, they fixed the trees. Okay, now let's move on. Fodder to the Flame, which had been redesigned into being horrendous, is just gone. And Unleashed Power, the cooldown reduction on Chaos Nova and cost reduction on Chaos Nova has been baked into baseline Chaos Nova, so those have been both just taken out. Chaos Nova cooldown reduced to 45 seconds was 1 minute. See, they baked in most of the power of Unleashed Power into the baseline Chaos Nova, and then Fury cost reduced to 25 was 30. Good deal. Concentrated Sigils no longer increases sigil durations. Precise Sigils no longer increases sigil durations. I'm actually glad to see this. For one, I think it was probably what was causing all the bugs with those 2 talents. They were insanely buggy talents that had a bunch of different problems with macros and other talent interactions. And the only reason that you wanted to take them was that they were a throughput increase. They gave you 2 seconds of sigil duration increase. That's a pretty substantial power increase and definitely something you would want to have, and it has been removed. I mean, this is a direct nerf, but it's coming with about I don't know, a dozen other buffs, and I'm willing to make that trade-off. I think that this is good. Just in general, I think that this is very good. Live by the Glaive, which is a heal when you parry. It's on a 5-second cooldown. And, you know, before it was a 2% heal, now it's a 4% heal. So this went from being, if you're proccing it on cooldown, it went from being like 2,000 HPS up to 4,000 HPS. I still think it's a really bad talent, but it's an option now. You can run it in Mythic Plus, and it's not the worst thing in the world. I still don't think it'll be that popular. It's not going to be that impactful, that's for sure. 4,000 HPS is not zero, but it's not a huge deal either. And that is assuming that you're proccing it on cooldown, which is maybe not realistic. If you're proccing it every 8 seconds or something, then we're talking about 3,000 HPS or 2,000 HPS, and then it's kind of crap again. All right, a few talents have changed locations and or had new connections added. Yeah, this is the real like money graph here in the Vengeance talent setup. Just really fixed a lot of the problems. Sheer damage increased, fracture damage increased, soul cleave damage increased, throw glaive damage increased. Just a baseline damage increase to a lot of the stuff that you use in single target as a Vengeance Demon Hunter. So I think there's a very clear project here, as we'll see throughout all of these changes, to boost Vengeance Demon Hunter's single target damage, which is good. Like, I think that Vengeance Demon Hunter is kind of, I wasn't sure about it until today, but I think that they're kind of positioning Vengeance Demon Hunter for a return to that Season 1 Shadowlands form, where they're one of the best tanks in the game in every single arena, maybe just the best tank in the game in every single arena. We'll see. It's certainly an interesting thing that's happening here with all the changes they're making. Calcified Spikes now provides its benefit if Demon Spikes is refreshed in addition to when it expires. This is huge. This is a massive quality of life improvement. It is a meaningful defensive bonus, and it's just really, really good. Demon Spikes can no longer be canceled manually. You know, the only reason that you really ever wanted to do this was so that you could automatically refresh Calcified Spikes, and that's no longer necessary. You just press Demon Spikes again. This is just all buff, no nerf. Meteoric Strikes, which you were unfortunately required to take to get over to some valuable talents on the right side of the tree, now reduces the cooldown of Infernal Strike by 10 seconds, up from 8. That's a good little buff. And Fell Flame Fortification now reduces magic damage taken while Immolation Aura is active by 12%, was 10%. Again, this is another talent. Neither of these two talents are particularly good. Like, if you could have them for free, you wouldn't say no. But considering you had to spend 2 valuable talent points in a tree that has a lot of good stuff in it to get to something that you really wanted, you know, it just didn't feel great having to take either of these. That is no longer the case, as we'll see in a second here. Feast of Souls, another terrible talent, has been doubled in value. It may be good, I don't know. I still think it's probably not going to see a lot of use. Mechanically, it's pretty lame. And then Bulk Extraction has had its cooldown reduced by 30 seconds, and Soul Barrier absorb values are increased by 28%. Again, these are like low value talents that all 3 of these low value talents, actually all 5 of these low value talents, they've all been buffed slightly, but they haven't been redefined mechanically, reworked mechanically. They haven't been buffed in a way that I think they'll actually see them get used. But in the weird edge cases, like, let's say you're super undergeared and you're trying to tank something hard, like Mythic Neltharion. Maybe you would need Soul Barrier to be able to survive some of the tank combos. Well, in those situations, now these crappy, underused off-meta talents become a lot more valuable for that weird niche purpose. Other than that, not that important. What is important are these 2 changes. Fiery Demise now increases your fire damage dealt to enemies afflicted by Fiery Brand by 25/50%, was 20/40. This is basically just a 10% damage increase while Fiery Brand is up. This is great. This is a solid damage increase, a solid burst damage increase that will really boost your damage a lot. In AoE, I guess, if you're using, whatever it's called, I'm blanking on Burning Alive. That's it, Burning Alive. If you're using Burning Alive and spreading your Fiery Brand around to a bunch of different enemies, then this can be a useful damage increase in AoE. It certainly will have just a general boost to Vengeance Demon Hunter damage, but this is particularly going to be strong in single target. You know, you jump in, you get your opening Soul Crush or Frailty stacks up in a single target raid situation. You get Fiery Brand on the target, you hit them with Soul Carver, and now instead of hitting for 40% more damage thanks to Fiery Brand, it's hitting for 50% more damage. All this stuff adds up to do a lot more damage, and Focus Cleave is right there with that. Increasing your Soul Cleave damage to primary target by 50% was 40. So there are a lot of different things, the Shear, Fracture, Soul Cleave damage increases, and then these two talents that are all combining to make Vengeance Demon Hunter damage in single target, as well as AoE, but single target specifically, not suck. And that's great. Okay, now let's look at the talents in-game. So I have let's look at the Mythic Plus talent setup first. So as we can see, the talent section has been radically reworked. There's a lot of changes that have been made to the way that the talents are laid out. Now, I've taken Live by the Glaive here just kind of to demonstrate that you can get it. But as you can see, like the top 3 talents are still the same as they were last week, but you can take Unrestrained Fury or Vengeful Bonds to get over here to get Bouncing Glaives and Chaos Nova. It's pretty easy to afford Chaos Nova and still take Sigil of Misery and improve Sigil of Misery. It's pretty easy to take those and take Consume Magic and improve Disrupt. There's a lot more freedom in this tree now. Pursuit, also pretty easy to come get. And as we can see over here, this Champion of the Glaive talent, this new choice node Throw Glaive talent, you have the option of taking Master of the Glaive, where you get a slow out of your glaive. That's not always something you want. Sometimes that can be quite disruptive in Mythic Plus to throw glaive, and then now half of the mobs in a pack are moving slow and the other half are moving fast and they're getting split up. Maybe I'd rather have 2 charges and not have a slow. Champion of the Glaive provides that, and I'm pretty thrilled about it. It's definitely great. So there's a lot more freedom, like I've said. You can kind of take Live by the Glaive as a fallback point. I think Chaos Fragments will probably be more likely as the fallback point, but either way. As we can see, Concentrated Sigils and Precise Sigils over here on the right-hand side, you have to path through Lost in Darkness to get to them, so I do think they're basically dead. Now we'll see, but I think that these two talents, I mean, they don't really provide any functionality that you can't get out of a well-written macro. You know, I have Unbound, Unmacroed, Sigil of Flame. This is me targeting my Sigil of Flame around, but I also have a @player Sigil of Flame that you can just press and boom, there it goes. So I don't really think that these two talents do anything of value at all anymore, and so spending 2 points to actually come and get them is, you know, silly. This also means that Fellblade is pretty easy to acquire. Now, I don't really like Fellblade all that much. I think it's useful in a raid situation where you have a lot more emphasis on generating and spending Fury. I think it's probably going to be used in a default raid setup. I do have it picked in the raid talent setup that I've been playing around with here. But I think in Mythic Plus, it's probably not a great talent to pick up, but it's an option. You can take it, just use it as a gap close or use it as an opener to get a bunch of Fury on a pull. Like, I don't really think that there's anything bad about taking Fellblade now, and you're not giving up something like Aura of Pain or a point somewhere else that you would need to travel in order to get it. You're basically giving up Chaos Fragments or, like, Consume Magic, and those are points that I think you can live without. Down here at the bottom of the tree, obviously we don't have Fodder to the Flame anymore, and Collective Anguish and Erratic Fellheart on the way to it just aren't as good as Elysian Decree and The Hunt still for Mythic Plus, so this is the same basic shape that you're going to run in the bottom half of the tree. And it's not like you're required to take Darkness. You know, you could spend some of these points higher up in the tree if you wanted. So this is more or less what I'm thinking for a left-hand side of the tree for Mythic Plus. You know, something. You got a floating point somewhere in the middle of the tree. Probably this, to be honest. Now, over in the right-hand side of the tree, you still have to path all the way over here to the left to get Spirit Bomb, but that's fine because most of these talents on the left-hand side of the tree are pretty great. What has changed is Ascending Flame is now moved way up on the right-hand side of the tree, and you no longer have to go through Meteoric Strikes and Fell Flame Fortification to get it. This is great. They basically just gave Demon Hunters 2 points back for free. So now you can take those 2 points that you were wasting in Meteoric Strikes and Fell Flame Fortification, still get Ascending Flame, still get all that extra power, and you can just throw them down here. Get that second point and Feed the Demon, get that point in Last Resort, and then you kind of have a free-floating point. Now, as you see, we only have like 1 extra point spent in the top 2/3 of the tree. So that could go into Dark Glare Boon. I think that's probably the best place to put it. Dark Glare Boon is really nice in Mythic Plus, especially now that it's been whittled down to a single point talent. Getting all that cooldown reduction, you know, I think it's about 18 seconds on average, getting about 30 Fury back on average, so it costs 20 Fury instead of 50. I think that's good, and that probably is what you're going to want to do. But you could take Soul Carver, you could take Sigil of Chains. These are both options. It's not like you are required to take Dark Glare Boon. I just think it's probably the best generic option in the tree here. I mean, you could even take like Void Reaver and get just 4% more damage reduction all the time. I think it's probably worse on average, but you know, it's like an option. In general, though, a lot of the top level talents that you really wanted before, like Chains of Anger, Cycle of Binding, Charred Flesh, and Illuminated Sigils, those are all still on the table. They're all in pretty great shape. They're all pretty appealing. So I think you're still going to want to stick with all of those. And they are functioning now. Like, I can show off here. Look at this, Elysian Decree. And now look, I'm going to do it again. And then Sigil of Flame, and Sigil of Flame twice. And then, yeah, a couple, you know, a lot of sigils being cast all in a row. And as you can see, they provide a lot of utility, a lot of crowd control. You could maybe talent into Improved Sigil of Misery if you wanted. That certainly wouldn't be a bad option. You know, you could probably just take that point out of Champion of the Glaive, something like that. No, I guess you need that for pathing. No, you could go with Fellblade after all. There's a lot of options for sure. You could do something like this even. So just in general, being able to get back down to Last Resort, which is not like you have to take it, but it is a nice safety belt to have, and getting that second point and Feed the Demon. I think that Demon Hunters are going to be very tanky in Mythic Plus for yet another season. I think they're going to be arguably maybe more fun to play, more fun for me anyways to play. I've liked the Fiery Brand build, the whole Fiery Brand playstyle, but I think it's run its course. It's a little complex, and yeah, you know, I'm kind of ready to move on to the next thing, and the next thing seems pretty interesting. So now let's take a look at the new raid build, which I can't switch to because Sigil of Silence is on cooldown. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, and now that Sigil of Silence has finished cooling down, we can swap over to the raid talent setup that I wanted to show off. And that does have a bit of a different focus. I have taken Roaring Fire to be able to path down to this bottom right-hand side of the tree, which is still really, really strong. You could take Meteoric Strikes instead of Roaring Fire. You do actually have a lot of emphasis on Fell Devastation in this raid talent setup. You're taking Dark Glare Boon, you're taking Stoke the Flames, you're even taking Collective Anguish, because I think it's maybe like 1% better for single target damage, and it saves you a keybind, so that's nice. Maybe you won't run this setup. Maybe you will actually run more of an Elysian Decree setup in raid after all. You know, we'll see. But this seems like a simpler, more damage-oriented setup in raid. And one of the things that is really nice about not having to take Meteoric Strikes and Fell Flame Fortification is now you can afford Calcified Spikes. You could, like I said, still pick up Meteoric Strikes. I don't think you'd want to take Retaliation. I think that's a pretty bad talent. But we'll go with Roaring Fire for the time being. And now you have Calcified Spikes, which is great. Alright, so there are two things I wanted to show off on a dummy here. One is just how quickly this edition of Fellblade really lets you get a lot of frailty stacks up with Soul Crush. And then also I want to show off Calcified Spikes resetting. So my weak aura for Calcified Spikes is like right around here, bottom right section. So we're just going to kind of dive right in, and as you can see, I press Demon Spikes once, I press it again, and boom, Calcified Spikes is rolling. Obviously, I'm not playing the rotation perfectly by any stretch of the imagination. My goal here really is just to see, can I get up to like 10 stacks of frailty pretty quickly, and the answer is, yeah. Yes, I can. That's pretty cool. Obviously, I'm not like using my cooldowns and all, sitting on the hunt, sitting on Fiery Brand, all that. But yeah, it's pretty nice to have Fellblade give you this extra juice, this extra bit of fury early in a pull. And then also it is just kind of a nice gap closer. You know, if you're a little bit outside of melee range, maybe you don't want to glide back in, you don't want to walk all the way back in. it can be a useful skill. I think that's interesting. I don't know that it's going to see much adoption in Mythic Plus, probably not any at all, but in Raid I could see this actually getting used. Now, the one downside of all of these changes to Demon Hunter, I mean, like, I am kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel to look for like a bad thing about getting a bunch of buffs. It does seem a bit like they've slipped into the same trap that they have with Brewmaster Monk, where Brewmaster Monk coming up all the way from Warlords of Draenor all the way to the end of Shadowlands was a tank that didn't have a lot of keybinds. It was a pretty simple tank, and I would say the same for Demon Hunter. Legion through Shadowlands, very simple tank. You know, Monk and Demon Hunter were the kind of 1A and 1B of the simplest tank, the least amount of keybinds. And it kind of seems like their fix for both of those classes to make them stronger, make them more interesting or relevant or whatever, is just to shove a bunch of awesome skills and keybinds in. And that's great, but there is a point where you go like, oh, hey, I don't have enough keys for all of these abilities. Like, if I wanted to run, instead of Collective Anguish, if I really wanted to run Elysian Decree and Darkness and the Hunt and Soul Carver, maybe I pick up Sigil of Chains or something while I'm at it. Like, you get where I'm going here. There are just now a ton of keybinds available to Demon Hunter. It's good to have all these strong powers. It really is. I mean, it's mostly all upside, but now this is another class that goes from being very simple, very low number of keybinds, limited rotational friction, pretty easy to play, not that much nuance, to, hey, here's 50 keybinds, here's a multitude of cooldowns and spells that you have to keep track of, here's a ton of rotational friction, and, yeah, I could see us heading toward a great pruning in just one expansion from Blizzard doing this whole talent rework and all these new skills available to players. I could see them by 11.0 realizing that they've given everybody like 60 spells to use and needing to tune that down. We'll see. You know, a lot of people have hypothesized that the next expansion will be like a world redesign like Cataclysm was, and that was when they did the great pruning on abilities. So maybe they'll do it. Maybe they'll not only rework the world in the next expansion, they'll rework the number of abilities that they're giving to players. I guess we'll find out. I'm very positive about the state of Demon Hunter going into the next patch, even more than I was a week ago. I think the class is looking really good. Blizzard fixed all of the pathing issues in the tree, and I think the class just looks really, really good now. I'm pretty excited to play it in the next patch, and I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.